Yes, it was like 35 degrees, wasn't it? And there were, of course, heat warnings issued. We're back now. For London, as well as the south and the east of England. We're getting these warnings all the time, aren't we?
But are we getting too many? Too many? Is it getting out of hand? Are we overly cautious and maybe even turning into a nanny state because we just can't sit back and enjoy what's going on around us? Now, I agree with that to a certain extent. And then you look at Greece, for instance, in Athens, what's going on there at the minute. Fire is surrounding the whole of Athens. And you got to say, how far away are we from that happening to us? But anyway, that's geographical. Personally, what do you think? To debate this, we're joined now by
political commentator Ben Cope and environmental scientist Professor Christian Dunn. Very good morning to both of you. And Professor Christian Dunn, should we start with you? Do you think that these heat wave health warnings that we seem to be getting all the time at the moment, have they got out of hand? Are we becoming a nanny state, do you think?
We put warnings of the temperature coming out of hot taps. So I think we've probably already gone too far down the line in many cases of warnings in many things in society. However, when it comes to temperature of our planet and the heat waves that we're having, these are only going to get worse if the predictions of climate change, climate breakdown are correct. They are only going to get worse. You mentioned there, you mentioned Greece, for example. They are only going to get worse. So we have to get used to them and we have to learn how to live with them. And as a society, I'd suggest that in Britain, we're not particularly good at dealing with the heat. Many of us may have been on the continent for summer holidays already, and if you get away from the main kind of cities into the kind of the quieter towns and villages, I think a lot of British people are always really surprised that everything dies down during lunchtime, and that's because people in those areas know that when it gets hot, you don't go outside. Mad dogs and Englishmen, we don't. We kind of still continue as normal, and perhaps we have to have a bit of a societal rethink about how we operate during times of extreme heat.
We're being told how to operate, Ben. What do you think about what we're being told and how often we're being told to do it?
Well, I don't think anyone would have a problem with the public or meteorologists telling the public when there are going to be sort of really severe weather conditions that do pose a direct danger to them. I think the issue here is, as you said, we're simply receiving too many of these. The bar at which the public is being informed has been set far too low. For example, last year, over 500 weather warnings were issued in the UK, so way more than one a day. We've already had, I mean, we're talking about extreme heat, but I think this is a sort of a cross weather issue here. We've already had 11 named storms this year. You know, I personally couldn't name half of those. So I think the trouble is that the public are being over-informed on this issue, and as a result, they're tuning out. So there's such a thing as over-communication, and I think that's what's happening here. So, and there's a real risk of, you know, when you do that, you know, when people tune out, you then don't have the impact that you want to. So I think it can actually be counterproductive.
This is the thing, Christian. Is it we're getting warnings, but are the warnings going in the right directions? I mean, you know, it's not so much about warning us as individuals about the heat, but it's doing something to our infrastructure, our river defences, our ability to fight fires and gorse fires and all that sort of thing. What do you think?
100%. I think these warnings, you know, are perhaps directed at the wrong people rather than the public. They need to be directed at policymakers and people that can actually make a difference. You've quite rightly said there. Our society is one thing, how we cope, but our infrastructure itself is not fit for a changing climate. You mentioned there river defences, obviously preventing flooding, but even things like getting rid of urban trees. We know that urban trees, having more greenery in our cities, can cool temperatures, offer shade. These are just simple practices which we have to reconnect with. In this country, I think we used to be, you know, many streets used to be lined with trees, for an example. We've lost that. We've lost that reconnection, and we've lost that understanding that nature can help buffer us against some of the extreme weather situations which we are going to be facing.
So glad to hear you say that. And the vandalism and the destruction, it's appalling to see what goes on in some cities, taking these trees out of the system. But why are they doing that, Ben? Why would they be taking the trees away? Because they're uprooting paving stones, or they're affecting foundations? I mean, what do you think about what Christians had to say there?
I'd completely agree with him. Climate adaptation as the planet warms is going to be an incredibly important thing, something that we need to get real about, you know, both policymakers and businesses. So I think I would entirely agree. I think just, you know, going back to the sort of the issue here of sort of too many weather warnings, I think another sort of potential side effect or the unintended consequence here that we might need to consider as well is that, you know, what we're talking about here is a form of communication, and effectively, you know, although some might see it as informing, I think some would also see it as scaring the public in that, you know, the weather's too bad today, don't go out or don't do certain things.
Gentlemen,
and, you know,
we've got to leave it there. I'm very sorry, but thank you very much indeed for your contributions. Very interesting listening to you.